Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your a'mal and deeds in this holy blessed month of Ramadan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this month a spiritually uplifting month. And may Allah protect you all in these trying and difficult times. According to Islamic law, a traveler must break their fast when they are traveling. There are exceptions. We've mentioned those exceptions in our previous series. Now there is one important question here. Is it allowed, according to Islamic law, to travel for the only purpose of breaking your fast? So you travel tomorrow, not because you have work, not because you have business, not because you're visiting anyone. No, the only reason why you're traveling is to evade the fast. Is so you do not fast tomorrow. Is this valid? Is this acceptable? Is this sinful? There is no doubt that doing so is makruh. It's unrecommended. It's discouraged. Because you're missing out on the rewards of fasting in the month of Ramadan. There are hadiths that tell us fasting in the month of Ramadan has such an amazing reward. You cannot compensate for it any time of the year. So there's no doubt that it's makruh. It's unrecommended. However, is it haram? Is it sinful? No. According to Islamic law, you can travel to break your fast. I know many people struggle with this idea. They find this unacceptable. But my dear brothers and sisters, we have to go by our legal system. Allah clearly mentions in the Quran, and we have this in the hadith, that if you are traveling, then you will make it up later. أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 185, Allah makes it clear. Allah doesn't say in the Quran, and this is not mentioned, in the hadith as a condition, that if you're traveling to break your fast, you're not allowed to. It's a general verse. It's a general statement. As long as you're considered a traveler and you're actually traveling, then you break your fast. Many people struggle with this idea. But in Islamic law, we have to always look at the subject and the ruling that applies to it. Allah says, if you're in your town, your home, you're in your city, the ruling is you fast. If you are a traveler, this label, this subject of traveler here is applied, then the ruling is you break your fast. It's as simple as that. Just like the qasr and the tamam, right? If you're praying in your city, in your town, you pray full. Salatul Dhuhr, Salatul Asr, Salatul Isha will be full. But if you're a traveler, you shorten your salah. Isn't it so? Now imagine if today someone says, I'm going to drive an hour to Toledo, so I pray my Dhuhr and Asr Qasr there. That's my intention. Obviously, this is an irrational thing to do. No doubt about that. But is this haram? No, it's not haram. Will this person be punished by God for doing that? No. Because Allah has made it very clear. You're traveling, you pray short, Qasr. You're in your town, you pray full. Let me give you a legal, relevant example to bring this closer to our minds. With this COVID-19 crisis here in the United States, the Congress, along with the government, they decided to give Americans who lost employment compensation. You can file for unemployment. If you've lost your job now as a result of coronavirus, you can actually go online, file for an application, and state that you've lost your job, and they're giving you unemployment. Some people are receiving $600 a week, some $700, some even $800. So the law says anyone who's not employed is eligible to get unemployment. This is the letter of the law. This is what the law says. Now, imagine if someone, they go to their company that they're working for, or the company comes to them, or you work for an institution or a business. The business, your employer comes and tells you, look, why don't you go and apply for unemployment benefits, and I will lay you off from my business. That way you'll get your money and the burden on me will be reduced because I'm not making as much money these days. Is this illegal to do? See, you have a job right now. You can still make money from that job. However, you go and you make this agreement with your boss to basically lay you off, so you go and get these unemployment benefits. Now there's a moral discussion here. Is this moral to do or not? That's another discussion. Obviously, this may not be a wise thing to do. It may not be a principled thing to do, right? Maybe there are other Americans who need this money more than you. But is this illegal? It's not illegal. The law does not ban that. The law simply states whoever is unemployed, they get the benefits. Now, why are you unemployed? Is it because you really got kicked out of your job, you got fired, you got furloughed, you got laid off, or you willingly made that arrangement with your employer? It doesn't matter. The law says anybody who's now unemployed, they can file for unemployment and they will get unemployment benefits. That's just to give you an example that sometimes when you have a subject, the law applies. So Islam says if you're a traveler, then you have to break your fast. Now, why is it that you're traveling? For work, to visit a family member, or just to escape the fast? It doesn't matter. As long as you're traveling is not for a sinful purpose, meaning to go and commit a sin. Somebody is traveling to go to Vegas, so they gamble. Yes, this is sinful traveling. In this type of traveling, according to our Islamic law, you have to keep your fast. Now, a person, would joke about this example, and he'd say, Sayyid, the one who's going to gamble or do something sinful, you really think they're going to fast? You'd be surprised, believe me. There are some people, they fast, they pray, and they do all sorts of things. In any case, yes, there are people like that. So you are allowed to willingly fast, travel in the month of Ramadan, and the reason for traveling is just to avoid the fast. You're allowed to do that even though this is makruh, this is not recommended. Now this brings us to this very important discussion. Some people say, tomorrow I have an exam. I'm taking the bar exam. I'm taking a very long exam. It's a very important exam. So I need to be fully alert. I need to drink my coffee. I need to eat well before the exam. And it's going to take 5-6 hours. I cannot fast. If I fast, this will impact my exam. So can I break my fast? Let's examine the steps here we need to take to address this scenario. Number one, can you reschedule the exam without any difficulty or serious consequences? If you can, try. Go to your school, go to that institution, tell them this is the month of Ramadan, I am fasting during the day, it's difficult for me to take the exam. See if they're willing to accommodate you. That's the first step, try. Show Allah that you care about His laws and you're trying. Sometimes it works, sometimes it may not work. That's the first step. See if you can reschedule for after the month of Ramadan. The second step here, my dear brothers and sisters, sleep well before the exam. If you have time till 5 a.m., let's say your exam starts at 8 a.m., try to have your coffee at 4:30. For some people, that still has an impact. If that's something that works for you, do so. Let's say that doesn't work for you. The exam is 8 hours, you need to drink coffee during the exam to stay focused. Are you allowed to break your fast? No. Not yet. There are still other steps that you have to take. The other step that you can take in this scenario is to travel. Travel, my dear brothers and sisters. At 6 a.m., travel, go about half an hour away from your city limits, and then break your fast while you're traveling, and then come back. If you do so, you're not committing a sin. But if you just stay in your town and you break your fast, that is sinful. You have to pay a kafara because you deliberately broke your fast, my dear brothers and sisters. And we're not allowed to do that. If you're sick, you can break your fast. But just to stay focused on an exam, that's not a legitimate excuse. So you can travel. And these days it's very easy to travel. So use this as a solution. If you really have to go to that exam, and there's no way that you can stay focused, and there's no way you're going to pass that exam unless you break your fast, then travel. An hour or two before the exam, go and travel and break your fast, and then come back to take your exam. The other recommendation that I have here, my dear brothers and sisters, have tawakkul on Allah. Allah will help you. Allah will see you're His servant, and you're fasting, and you're going through this difficulty. Do not underestimate the blessings Allah gives you when you obey Him, my dear brothers and sisters. I myself, I can attest to that. Starting about 7-8 years ago, or actually 10 years ago, when the month of Ramadan started to shift from the fall into the summer months, the days became longer and longer. So many mosques and programs, they started having their lecture before iftar. And we as scholars and speakers, we have to speak sometimes after 17 hours of fasting or 16 hours of fasting. In the last few years, it has been very common, for me and many other speakers and scholars. Let's say adhan is at 9 p.m. We give our lecture at 8 p.m., 8:15. Now, this is after 16 hours of fasting. Believe me, it's very challenging. That first year, I was not sure what to do. Should I stay the full 10 days in that city that I'm visiting and fast? Should I travel a week later after that so I'm considered a traveler, so I can give my lecture and I can concentrate and then later on make it up? I was thinking with myself. But then I said, have tawakkul on Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees what you're going through. Let Him help you. And my dear brothers and sisters, Allah helps, believe me. It's not easy after 17 hours, towards the end of the day. You have not eaten anything for 17 hours. You cannot drink anything. And you have to give a 45-minute lecture, a 30-minute lecture. There's a lot of memorization that you have to do. You have to concentrate. So Allah does help you. I thought it would be very difficult, but then I saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts blessings in your work, in your effort, and He does help you through it. So my dear brothers and sisters, have tawakkul on Allah. Go to that exam and say, oh Allah, you compensate me, and see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help you. Now, assuming you cannot travel, assuming that you have to go to this exam, and this exam is going to determine your fate. If you fail this exam, that's it. It's over for you. There's no opportunity. It's very difficult to really conceive of a scenario like that, but we're just talking about it theoretically. Your life is going to be shattered, destroyed. You're not going to get a job, and you will put yourself and your family in unbearable hardship. And the only way to avoid that hardship is to break your fast and go to that exam. And you cannot reschedule it. There's nothing you can do about it. In this very rare example, okay, scholars say if keeping the fast is going to put you in unbearable difficulty and hardship, fine. Break your fast, and then after the month of Ramadan, you can make it up. But with all these solutions and alternatives, my dear brothers and sisters, it should not reach this point. One final point here about fasting while traveling. If you're ever leaving your town, your city, after Dhuhr, Dhuhr is the time where Salatul Dhuhr is offered. It's the time of Adhan. It's midday. It's the half point between sunrise and sunset. At the time of Dhuhr, if you're traveling and you start your travels after Dhuhr, so let's say Dhuhr is 1:30 p.m., you're leaving at 3 p.m., at 2 p.m., you will stay fasting that day. You cannot break your fast. If you're leaving before Dhuhr, so like at 11 a.m., 10 a.m., then you break your fast. This is one scenario. Another scenario is if you were traveling and you're going back to your hometown. So let's say you went to Chicago for a weekend program or business, so you broke your fast. Now Monday you're on your way back to Detroit. If you're going to arrive Detroit after Dhuhr, after 1:30 p.m., then yes, that day you cannot fast it. But if you're going to arrive Detroit before Dhuhr, let's say you left Chicago at 6 a.m., you will be in Detroit by 10 a.m. It's optional for you. You can choose to fast that day or no. If you didn't eat anything after Fajr that Monday, if you did not eat anything after Fajr in Chicago, and all the way until Detroit, and you got to Detroit before Dhuhr, you can actually make the niyyah to fast that day and your fast would be valid. But if you decided to eat in Chicago at 6 a.m. when you were leaving Chicago, you had a coffee, or during the way you got hungry and you had a snack. But if you did eat, you're allowed to eat, even if you know that you're going to arrive Detroit before Dhuhr, but you're allowed to eat or drink. So if you did eat or drink, then you're not allowed to fast that day anymore. You have to make it up later. So these are also two scenarios that have to do with traveling and fasting. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, my dear brothers and sisters. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.